This is a part of creative sector. This is an innovation, but it's also part of the media because we communicate to the public. We collect stories, we collect reality, we collect facts to speak about the state of disability in South Africa. And the initiative really will inform policy work, it will inform programs, but it will also celebrate persons with disability. I must say that the theme on its own, that speaks about acting, that speaks about talking, it's a theme that resonates with us because we are in our 32 years of freedom, but we are also in our 30 years of our constitution, a constitution that meets and speaks about non-discrimination, equality, and dignity for all. The rights of persons with disability are a fundamental right. They are not a luxury, they are essential. And that's why podcasts of this nature must be supported, must be stood with. So we call everybody, government, private sector, we even call allies, stand by disability. 365 podcast. Now is the time.
It's Disability 365 bringing you nothing but the best. My name is Tato Mkwena. The co-hosting with me is Thabisa Shozi. Thabisa, please greet the listeners at home.
Ngqanga zonke nensibazayo sanibonani Dumelang Absheni igama nguThabisa Shozi. Today we are live at Impact Studios in Randburg, Johannesburg, South Africa. I welcome you all to the Disability 365 podcast.
Well, you can start by following us on our social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We are Disability 365 Podcast. And today we're bringing you an exciting episode because this is the first of many episodes that we'll be shooting. And we've got an exciting guest. And the topic of today we'll be delving into is information really the key to inclusion in South Africa? What do you feel about that? Tell us in the comment section your thoughts on that. Are you receiving information correctly? Are you receiving information in a way that you can understand? And if not, what's the cause and how can it then be fixed? Let us know in our comment section. We're not alone today. We're joined in studio by the Deputy Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities in the Presidency, Minister Mapaseka Steve Letsika. Minister, it's an honor and a privilege to have you with us on studio, and especially considering this is the first episode, we feel honored and especially very blessed to have you with us today.
Listen, Tato, this is my honor. I've got two co-hosts here. Tato, Tabsi, thank you so much for inviting me to this exciting first episode. What more can we do? Really, it's May. We have just come out of Freedom Month just a month ago. Just a few days ago, we commemorated and celebrated 30 years of our Constitution. And Disability 365 podcast is doing it. It's actually living to this aspiration that we have in our Constitution, that the lives that we have in the country matters. You know, it does not matter any kind of ground. No one is supposed to be discriminated. No one is supposed to experience any harm, any challenge, because the supreme law says that everyone is equal before the law. Absolutely. And this first episode that we're going to be discussing will break down all of this. So I'm super excited to be here in the studios, Impact Studios, and I'm excited that Disability 365 podcast has this opportunity to bring information, education, impact to society.
Absolutely. Minister, today's topic is about information. And the reason why we then decided today that it's an important topic because we cannot do anything without information. It's the information that allows us to communicate. It's the information that allows us to know what's happening. And it has been, when you look at it in the concept of the disability sector, information has, been an issue due to different understanding, different capacities of persons with disabilities. How, in your view, Minister, how would you say, what's the cruciality of information, access to information, in realizing true inclusion in South Africa?
Yeah, well, I think we need to be very clear. You know, this topic is very important because when you talk about information, this is not just merely about a message. It's about power, because information is power.
That's true.
And it's really about who knows, where is it accessible, who is informed, and so forth. A lot of things, right? And it's really not just a simple thing that we need to just take it to say, but you know, this, did we take information or not? This is really about where is this information accessible. Information in our country goes through various platforms. Like here we are, a podcast.
Absolutely.
And congratulations to you and the team. But information goes through school. It can be in our curriculum. It could be in announcements. Goes through places of worship. You know, it could be in the interpretation of our own scriptures or what. It's information.
That's right.
It could be in families, just by virtue of families sitting together around the table. It's information. But it also could use tools, like whether technology is used, whether information on newspaper, whether through telephone, all of that. It's power. But the question of information, it's really also about access. Who holds this power? Who designs this information? Who creates this information? Who knows about it and so forth? So for me, that's a fundamental question. And if we do not dismantle this power of information around access, around creation, around innovation, and also around how we respond to the information, and who is it prepared for? So for me, this is not just mere question of information. It's really a question about power that relates to information.
Absolutely. And because when we look at information, Minister, especially in your rural communities, you would find someone saying, I did not know that was happening. You'd find maybe a department, human settlements, or even a private sector, they want to hire people, they want to do what, but find someone, I didn't see that, I didn't know. Why do you think this gap exists, especially in rural areas when it comes to access to information that leads to inclusion?
Well, I think it's about access, it's about inequality. Because if you are to reflect historically, we never had podcasts. People relied on information either when you had television, or you had radio, or newspaper. Those were traditional information tools that were used. And if you are going to get your information at a particular time and you did not hear as the breaking news, you're more likely to receive that information late. So if your family, in my own village in northwestern Phokeng, we at home never had a TV. The house that had a TV, all of us will gather in that, but we'll sit outside and you could see, okay, that TV. So if that TV is not loud, whether you were watching Bob TV or whatever, you are not going to hear it. But things changes.
Yeah,
you know, there's a lot of innovation. Even in the past, we only had station 1, 2, and 3. Now we no longer have that, which later became SABC 1, 2, and 3. You know, you have all these different channels, and then now you have DSTV. You've got all of these different platforms. Even with radio stations, you now have more radio stations. Now you can stream. Now you can come to podcasts. Now you can get your information even on social media. But inequality then speaks about whether you have access, if you can afford, because even social media is not free, by the way.
Absolutely.
For me to see Disability 365 podcast, I need to stream it on YouTube. I need to stream it on social media platforms. So now the question becomes whether it's accessible. Is it on an app? Can we turn this, these sessions, these shows into a free mode? But it's not just free. You can make it free and pass it around, distribute it. Absolutely. But the service providers, connectivity service provider, requires you to have data to send There's videos around to educate more people. So the issue of inequality is at the heart of it, Tato, that the haves and the have-nots disadvantages a lot of people, and that means people end up receiving information late. Whether you're talking about the work government is doing, government tries to create even information centers. When you go to municipalities, when you go to departments, they have brought this department and municipalities closer to people, that you can walk into a community center. In Mamelodi, if you go to Mamelodi and you are a resident there, you can walk into Tusong Center, where you can go and check information around youth economic opportunities, or you can interact with parliamentary officers or so forth. So the question is whether people know those centers exist. That if you can't access it through technology, you can't access it through the means of communication like radio, TV, and others, or newspapers, but you can walk. So it's how information is delivered, and it's meeting the needs of people in the rural area versus the urban area versus the townships or the peri-urban. And just remember, the work we do in the country is saying that we must modernize things everywhere. It does not mean things might exist where you and I are in now, Gauteng. Things must exist in Lusikisiki. Things must exist in Phokeng. They must exist in Saldanha
in
Bay.
Bizana, my town.
It must exist everywhere, that people are not limited. But it is part of whether we have civilized ourselves to modernize even in rural communities. Not everybody must move to Gauteng, to eThekwini, or to Cape Town or East
Port
London.
Elizabeth.
No, we want you to remain where you are in Gqeberha and enjoy the same information, the same quality of health, the same quality of education. And that is breaking the systems of inequality and how all of us were. It's not an overnight exercise, Tato, because if you take all of these challenges and you speak about inequality or issues that we are faced with, must take the history that we have come from as a country. Why do you have Soweto? Why do you have Atteridgeville? Why do you have KwaThema? Why did people become, isolated from centers of economy and so forth? So those discussions must be checked, the checks and balances alongside the questions we are asking. But the current state of affairs is opening up opportunities where people are, where young people are, where they can get information on time.
Absolutely. And I think, the important thing, Minister, when you were with us at the launch, and I'm referring back to the importance of information, I remember we're asking ourselves, even in the department, are there persons with disabilities? What goes on in cabinet, And you really brought insight. And I know people at home would want to know this. What happens when you get to cabinet? What talking about disabilities? Who's there? And that's the importance. I believe that you will allow us from time to time to even come to your office,
sure.
and just to showcase that we are not, the department is not only advocating for inclusion, but within the department, inclusion exists as well. And we want to really thank the department for that. And going back to the question, Minister, what would you say are the mistakes that currently in communication are happening when communicating to persons with disabilities?
Yeah, indeed, there are lots of mistakes. But first, before we even speak about mistakes, our conversation should be premised around the Constitution. That Constitution doesn't require mistakes. That Constitution makes promises. And that promise of dignity, the promise of equality, the promise of integrity for all, it's important.
It is, definitely.
So I want us to premise that. So anybody who's doing anything, when we even came with what we call Batopele principle, was you put people first. and you test it against the Constitution. If anything that I'm doing, am I doing it right? Is it ensuring integrity, dignity, and equality of people, and so forth? That's the most important. The second thing, over time, we then also adopted the white paper on the rights of persons with disability. And remember, this white paper didn't just come automatically. There's been a lot of advocacy. There's been a lot of talks, research that says, hey, we are not doing very well and responding to the need of persons with disability. And secondly, we are a signatory to international treaties. That is also the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability.
Okay.
So it's about our obligation and responsibility towards our citizens. First, it's towards the persons with disability and also the families and all the people that surrounds the person with disability. And it's quite important. Now, you are asking a question, what is it that we're doing wrong in communication? Now, despite all of these and despite some of the things that have been introduced, we've even gone to an extent of passing the 12th official language, which is sign language. The most important thing, this is an official language. Is it exercised everywhere? That if you find a deaf person going into a police station, is there sign interpretation at the police station? So the fulfillment becomes a little bit of challenge, right? And the fulfillment, it means that when you pass laws, when you put in some of these legislations, you must budget for them. Because the fulfillment is then challenged by the budgetary constraint, and which then is a mistake number one. Mistake number two, one of the issues that I battle with and I always fight with colleagues, ICASA, which is a regulatory body, that's supposed to help you and I, that if I'm visually, I'm deaf, I have hearing impairment and so forth, I now will rely on sign or I will rely on subtitle.
Yeah, true.
So it means that even anything that plays on TV from SABC to DSTV, all of them must comply.
Definitely.
Because you cannot ignore sharing information to those who have hearing impairment. So we fight this battle every day. Even just tools that we use. I mean, even in the WhatsApp group that I have established to put out there, I always have to remind colleagues, even in the department, no video must go out without subtitle. Because these are basic things that ensures access. That gives dignity to people. So I was just giving you a simple example of those who have hearing impairment. The second mistake is assuming that whenever we talk about access, colleagues, when we talk about access for persons with disability, it's not just about ramp, it's not just about wheelchair, all of it. It's about control. It's about knowing that there's an opportunity, knowing that I'm going to a building and I will not struggle.
Absolutely.
It's really about giving that total dignity and integrity to individual. But if I have to navigate that I'm going to a building, the entrance that is used by everybody, I'm subjected to the entrance behind. Whereas when we say the accessibility of persons with disability, it means that we must invest in infrastructure changes. If you had 2 staircases on a stage, historically on a building, intentional and transformational change towards dignity means that already you dismantle the other set so that you create access as a permanent infrastructure change. So those kind of mistakes happens, but it then means that do we have capacity? Do we have the right people who are going to ensure that the tools are used for communication, subtitles are integrated? So we can create opportunities. We can create employment opportunities. We can appoint, train as much sign interpreters so that we are not limited to 5 sign interpreters in our country and used and overused, but we can train more. So mistake is fulfillment. That our country has moved in the 30 years to improve the conditions of many persons, including persons with disability. We've seen this progress, no doubt, but we can do better. We've got a huge percentage of our population that requires access to this communication, to this information, and so forth. Braille, biggest challenge we have. People will even talk about expense. Well, Braille machines are expensive. But if you're going to serve people, invest in people.
That's correct.
So, Deputy Minister, many people, young people with disabilities here in South Africa, they are feeling so discouraged because they don't know where to find the opportunities. Where can you, okay, let me put it in this way. What advice would you give to them? Okay, let me not use again the word disability. I don't like to use that word. I like to say people that are living with physical limitations. So what advice would you give to them? Those that are feeling discouraged, sitting there, they don't even know where to go, more especially those that are in rural areas. I feel like those people are not well attended.
Sure.
So what advice can you give to them?
Interesting thing you're talking about, your definition that, people who are living with physical limitation. I think the disability is not kind of homogeneous because you have others who have, limitation, but it's not physical.
Sure.
And I don't want us, maybe that's a discussion we can have another day around definition, because also definitions, evolve. They do evolve. But I don't want us to only limit ourselves to those with physical limitation. You have those with, mental limitations and so forth, and the spectrum also that comes with it. I want to say that we have, to some extent, we can say that we have information overload. But information overload that even people no longer know where to get the right information. I think a lot of institutions, government, private sector, makes as much available information as possible. But it's the packaging, it's the tailor-making of the information. And I've worked, within the public policy for the last 22 years. And often, even with marginalized communities, I can simply tell you, if you do not package this information, tailor-make it, remember, persons with disability, like LGBTI, like women, like other communities, they have quite a lot of needs.
True.
Right?
True, that's true.
And they have historically been disadvantaged. Because if you're talking about general population and understand systems of oppression, general population can operate and can engage anywhere. But once you look at which marginalized community was left behind, part of why we speak about gender equality now, women's empowerment, is because women were systematically disadvantaged. Part of why we speak about black people, who are majority in this country, were historically disadvantaged because black people were isolated, taken into townships and so forth, removed into the communities that they were born in, and those communities we set up economic hubs. And we mustn't forget this history, it's important, right? And then you then speak about whether LGBTI. Now when you even speak about persons with disability, historically have been marginalized. Now you want to unlock this, you cannot treat it as a general issue.
Absolutely.
It means that you must tailor-make interventions, information. what information reaches persons who have visual impairment. It means that if you say we are using website to communicate, that website, if it does not have an audio to it, it's not serving.
It's not serving.
It's not.
It's not serving persons who have visual impairment, and that's the biggest issue that we must deal with. So you must tailor make. If I am blind and I go to a bank, financial institution, or education sector website, I switch on and doesn't play an audio, I'm left out. That means I don't have access. If there's a video that is loaded that tries to explain that this is a funding that is provided for education for everybody, including, and there's no subtitle, you're leaving people out. So my take is that this is not a message to persons with disability. I think this is why I'm saying an information overload, but if it's not tailored, there's absolutely nothing wrong that persons with disability are doing. It has absolutely to do with service providers. And if service providers don't change their attitude, don't change their policies, I mean, everybody now, I was interested to see companies have now talk about inclusivity and diversity and so forth, and you still go and say, what are you talking about? Okay, others are improving. I must tell you that. We can tell you those who have gold status, silver status, and so forth, they're improving. But they need to do more. We need money deployed into services that reach out, meaningful reaching out for persons with disability. But what I can tell you is that while we have this challenge, the persons with disability and allies must not neglect being active citizens.
Absolutely.
This is now where I say, if a person with disability or with limited or limitations, they must voice out. Our constitution allows you to speak out, to say that, unfortunately, your services are not catering for me. And it's not only their responsibility, that's why I'm speaking about allies. I don't have to be a person with disability to speak for persons with disability. I can speak because I see an injustice. I see an injustice. As a human rights advocate myself, I've dedicated myself and my life to fighting for human rights of all persons. And even if historically I've paid attention to marginalized community, that's why persons with disability for me are important. And this is why I'm saying, let's build a mass of active citizens. May at least the organization that I'm part of politically, it's African National Congress. You ask this title, and you say, what happens, to you getting into parliament, you getting into cabinet. The party I come from, which is the African National Congress, has got guidelines. And besides these guidelines, the Freedom Charter, that is 71-year-old, said we shall liberate everybody. It didn't say we are liberating, certain group of population. No, it said everybody. And that's why people constantly say that the African National Congress is a broad church. It means that everybody can come in and speak out. And then, besides the Freedom Charter was the National Democratic Revolution. That NDR is important. And those things hold us because as activists, we are not just politically conscious. We know what is the task at hand. And the task at hand is to protecting the liberation of people and is to ensure that everybody can enjoy this fundamental freedom and we can protect the Constitution. So my take is that persons with disability are not removed. I want to see more activism by young people in their community to say, by the way, you said you have 43 offices of the National Youth Development Agency. I've visited these NYDA offices of young people, and we know when you drive in, when you walk in, when you whatever, you've got access. And that's what we want to see. Every center, every service that should be accessible to people and persons with disability.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think undiphendule kahle kamnandi kakhulu nabazo mamela bazaw ba happy ngendlela oyichaze ngayo. So the next question that we received from our fellow people is that what has been the most emotional or eye-opening moments that you have experienced while engaging with the people that are living with physical limitations?
A question of emotional. What breaks me is how South Africans have normalized jokes.
Yeah.
That gives me discomfort. We have normalized stigma. We have normalized misogyny. We have mobilized discrimination. We think it's okay to make jokes. That breaks me. Because it tells us about the nature of victimization. You see, all of us are born equal. All of us. And when we are born equal, it doesn't matter what physically I might experience or intellectually I might experience in my growing up. Because the equal is confirmed by God. We are made in the image of God. But somewhere, somehow, we have developed this intolerance, we've normalized wrong things that I can look at another person and make a joke about their physical appearance, about, how they identify, and so forth. And we see this is not only just affecting persons with disability. And we normalize it. So for me, I've been brought up in a very Christian faith home. When I lost my parents when I was young, I was very young, 7 years old. 4 of my siblings, the youngest was 5 months old. The oldest was 12 years old. So we were brought up by grandparents. But they taught us love, respect, and diversity. They taught us at a very young age to even accept that people will even joke the fact that you don't have parents. You are an orphan. So you learn from a young age how to respect others, because you can go out and think, man, tato ko gabo go na le mme go na le papa. Why is nam na mme le papa? You learn that other household, man, go na le a granny-headed household. You learn in that household go na le 2 daddies or 2 mummies. You learn diversity, but you learn to respect. It's families. Families are not just a nuclear. Families are who cares, who loves, who unites. So for me, it starts there. So that upbringing taught me how to respect and how to love and how to care. And I get not shocked, but I get troubled by how people can just try to make funny things. Recently, I think 2 months ago or so, having done this work for the last couple of decades, there's a young man, of course I know his father, Marcus in Attridgeville, whose son, these influencers, social influence, I don't even know what they influence, by the way, sometimes. I really respect people who can transmit information that is educational, that is helpful to society. But of course, we live in a digital age that things can be delivered by people. But if you are not responsible influencer, I really have a challenge. This social media, TikTok, acted when Marcus posted his son, who's physically challenged or has physically limitation. that TikTok person did the same and posted that video and made fun of it.
I remember it.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
of course taken to the Human Rights Commission and so forth. But what kind of a society are we living in? That we are a society that has become even intolerant, that it's so easy to victimize. But people's psychology must be understood. Victimization doesn't start with what he did as an act.
Okay.
It starts in the mind.
In the mind, yeah.
And if you don't control your mind, you start acting it out. Because whatever you think, you can consciously. That's why if we don't even understand the responsibility of education sector, to saying part of why we need to educate children when they are young, it's about cognitive understanding and to differentiate what is wrong and right. That's why it's important to capture it when people are young. Children, you teach them wrong, right, speak, don't speak, behave, and so forth, because it's about the development. So some people possibly missed some of these things, because if they could not distinguish whatever you're thinking is right or wrong, you're conscious, you start then moving to the next step. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm sure those who in the mental health, in the psychology space can elaborate more. But they could not distinguish that. And you start judging. That's why I'm saying, and then derogatory words. That's why we can be so discriminative and we use wrong words, we use derogatory words. That's why even those who are racist, they use derogatory words. That's why those who are homophobic use derogatory words. That's why you have even those who are sexist use derogatory words. And once you move in stages. And when you move from there, the time now you start acting on those kind of behaviors, and then it becomes a problem. So for me, it troubles me. As you're asking, what emotion? It's an everyday thing. If I come across something that is incorrect, it troubles me. But I cannot keep quiet about it. I act on it.
Oh, wow. So, based on the views, based on the experience that you have, do you think the South Africans, they understand the disability enough, or we still have a long way to go?
You know, South Africans are interesting people. South Africans are smart people. They know what is wrong and what is right. And our history dictates when we know what is harmful. Our history dictates because we were discriminated, we were oppressed because of the color of our skin. So we understand injustice. So we understand when there's injustice against a woman, but we also understand when there's injustice against the persons with disability. So the question of whether South Africans knows enough, there's a lot of information. I think sometimes we are plain ignorant. And we are disrespectful. And we don't have to lie about it. It's whether we are prepared to work as a society that is just and that ensures that everybody can enjoy the respect. Respect doesn't go one way towards parents, towards somebody who has money, or towards whatever. No, respect goes even for a person who's poor. It goes for a person who's rich. That respect must be equally going to everybody. So my take is that there's high level of information, but there's also high level of ignorance. So whose responsibility is it? Government does reach people and does its work. When we determine it's not enough, it's then the question of access. Private sector does its work, it's not enough. We then also speak about that. NGOs does a lot. Even persons with disability, who sometimes we think the burden is on them. It shouldn't be. It's all our responsibility. So my take is that in our uniqueness of the country, in the with the opportunities we've had, maybe what we can say that South African might not have is information to distinguish the differences. I know, for instance, when you talk about intellectual disability, we all had to teach ourselves because you are assuming, we grew up in a township, but no, everybody who possibly would have intellectual or so, you assume no, they have mental health issues and you leave it at that. But you actually didn't understand the spectrum. You didn't understand the differences between when you have those who absolutely have incapacity or those who have capacity but to a particular aspect. So we all had to educate ourselves, right? But it was clapped. When you then immediately assume and you're saying, person with disability, you clap it together. So we need to understand that education doesn't end with what we have heard. It goes with research, reading. Education it must be fashionable because it must have you must be interested in it. To then say the difference or how we mustn't treat persons with disability as a homogeneous group is to understand that there's a difference and understand that there's groups, there is communities and so forth that we must empower ourselves. Because everybody in our families, in our homes and so forth, we do have, but it's not limited to that.
Okay, Deputy Minister, I'm sorry. What gives you hope about the disability inclusion, looking at how things are currently?
Sure.
Not here in South Africa only, maybe. Globally, yes.
Yeah. Listen, I think, at least if I tell you, in South African history, at least you've got organizations as old as DPSA that are 45 years old, 46, 47 somewhere now. But what gives me hope is young people.
Okay.
Globally, I've interacted with a lot of young people who are eager, who are not being boxed, who are not being closed like historically when our families used to lock up persons with disability because they were embarrassed on how the society will react. Is that our policies are transforming. People are saying, no, yeah, maybe it used to be okay in 1994 when we set it up like this. Come 2023, we then improve a policy. Policies are not stagnant, are a working document. So we've got young people who are brilliant, and we've got young allies who are also in the legal space, in the research space. I mean, you've got this young person who just graduated in UKZN.
And UKZN, yeah.
Come on, guys. Come on.
You're also inspiring.
So for me, every day I'm inspired by the fact that persons also with disability are not locking themselves in specific sectors. All sectors are important. So we have that, but we also have the ability to say the targets that we set for ourselves, like if you take, we've set ourselves, these are minimal targets, by the way. Whether you're talking about 2%, 3%, 7% by 2030, right? You're saying persons with disability must be in employment. The good thing is that they mustn't be left into admin jobs alone. They can be managers, they can be CEOs, they can be scientists and so forth. So that gives me hope. Economic trajectory is changing. Secondly, socially, the attitudes are changing. We are moving into infrastructure, into access, we are moving into technology and so forth. But I'm telling you, what will give me hope, Tato and Tab, is that we need to, like I'm saying, I said it in the beginning, let's build a mass of empowered persons with disability. You have a department. In other countries in Africa, they don't have this, what you and I have here. People with disability have advocated. The presidents of this country that are led by African National Congress heard the plight of persons with disability. They saw a need based on hearing that persons with disability who represent themselves, they don't have to be spoken for, have to have a dedicated department that looks at policy and meeting that. President Ramaphosa has what we call Presidential Working Group We are finishing now the CVs that came in, persons with disability from different sectors. So that gives me hope. It means that we are going somewhere, but we must be united, by the way. One thing that I will have as a problem is sometimes when I look at organizations of persons with disability and I'm like, okay, fine. They are doing incredible work. But hey, the division.
It's big.
I'm saying we must unite. Come together. In Parliament, you've got people with disability. You've got Honorable Megan Adonis Chauke, who's there. You've got others as well who are there. It's about how we intentionally change their lives. You've got researchers, I think it's called Dr. Hoyes in UNISA.
Yes.
Who's he's a young man. He's a young man. He's not old. He's living with autism. He's with autism. You've got incredible people. I don't have to quote even global people who are innovators. I've spoken about it during your launch to say some of the most innovation was created by persons with disability. And we don't like celebrating that. In our office, when you come, you've got people with disability who are directors, who are chief directors. My hope is not just to see people occupying space. My hope is that whatever we do for persons with disability, it must change an ordinary life of a young person, of an older person with disability, of a child with disability, that we don't treat this as technical things, Tato.
Absolutely.
Is that I will leave this house and I'm going to look for an institution that is going to give me opportunity besides my disability.
Absolutely. Definitely. And I love what you've said, Minister, and I think in closing from my side, I would want to ask, and I believe a lot of viewers at home would want to know, how do we, in political parties, as you have mentioned, when you look at the music industry, the arts, and so forth and so on, how do we really get to a point whereby inclusion is seen by, if there's an election in a party, you see a representation. For example, whether it's a top 6 or top 7, you see a person with disability. Because my question was, are we ready as a country to, especially political parties, record labels, are we ready to deal and understand and handle a person with disability? For example, in the political party context, in the top 6 or top 7 now of the African National Congress, if we were to have someone with disability, are we ready for that? Would that be would that be possible, rather?
I think I can tell you from my own political party, ANC,
Yes.
we are ready. We are ready, and not only just because our guideline says that, it's because we have an integral part of a disability members. The state of readiness must be maybe thought about it in 2 forms. That this is not about being included. It's about persons with disability reclaiming their space. We've just spent the last couple of minutes talking about power, inclusion, and so forth. But we are also talking about very incredible intellectuals who are capable of anything in any field: science, law, social, health, it doesn't matter. So the state of readiness is in the mind. And it could be in the mind of persons with disability or those who are not. Right? The question is the environment. Who has power and who's controlling the environment? Because we have to understand that persons with disability has been historically marginalized. Now we are opening up, we are creating an enabled environment, which then means that if tomorrow we have a candidate who's appointed a mayor I need to be going to local government election.
Yes.
And the person who's elected a mayor has a disability. Well, we have to all acclimatize
Yeah.
to that because they will have capacity because they are not just appointed or elected because they have a disability. This is also something that bothers me a lot.
Yeah.
That, people like, oh, no, they're appointed or elected because they are gay. No, that's just the one part of my life. Oh, okay, they appoint because they have a disability. No, that's one part of my life.
Bamenzele favor,
Hayibo.
disability.
Bamenzele favor.
Hayibo,
Hayibo.
siqala phi le nto le?
Yeah.
Do you
Hayibo.
really think ukuthi le ngqondo ayisebenzi kangaka?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hayibo. We have a lot of persons with disability that are going to school, that are activists, that are politically wise, and that are charged with, and that have leadership capability, by the way. Sometimes we fear possibilities. So we must understand that as historically marginalized people fear our power, Tato. So that's why we are not tested. But now it's also upon us whether we are able to reclaim our power and demonstrate that we have that capacity. So politics, maybe you've given an example. It's a very interesting competitive terrain, but you do have and you must exercise that. But in also other sectors as well. We want persons with disabilities to be CEOs,
Absolutely.
to be doctors. We have, by the way.
We do.
We have.
We do.
We have members in the Chapter 9 institutions. We have members in parliament. We have members in private sector. We have members who are teachers, who are professors, and so forth. President, even yesterday, was awarding, he's the patron, the chief patron of the national orders. And he gave an award even to Andisiwe, who, of course, is a long time has been ensuring that she's a sign interpreter. So we have brilliant people. So my take is that, are we ready? This country is ready. It's the environment and it's everybody that must. Our laws are ready. Our people with disability are ready. We must exercise it. Don't fear.
We must act.
We must act.
We must act. No, thank you very much, Minister. We're still live and direct, Disability 365 podcast, bringing you nothing but the best. And as we are closing off, Thabisa, anything from your side?
I think I have covered all the questions that I wanted to ask, but I have one more question for the Deputy Minister. That is from Sesi. Usesi is asking ukuthi njengoba there is a law that was amended about the Employment Equity Act.
Sure.
Ukuthi employees must employ at least 2 persons that are living with physical limitations. So we are bana. How do you ensure that that law is followed accordingly? How do you follow up?
Yeah. You're raising a very important point. One of the things is that you see it in gazettes and all of that, there will be this fine print that says we encourage women, young people, persons with disability to apply. Let me tell you, implementation of law is intentional. And unfortunately, because employment opportunities are also around who sits on panels and so forth, but it's intentional. That means we must shortlist, we must interview, that means you must also, how do you ring fence certain jobs for persons? Because remember, we've got targets that we've set for ourselves. I can tell you without fear, and I know, but anyway, I'm going to say it. Even president would question boards, state-owned boards, to saying, I don't see a person with disability. He would even advise ministers to say, if you don't, go ahead, hunt. As long as the person meets the criteria, the requirements, and so forth. It's transformational. So we've set a target for ourselves. The Minister of women, youth, and persons with disability, Minister Chikunga, and I remember she led us into an engagement with Department of Public Service and Administration to engage with Minister Buthelezi. We interacted with the acts and the laws that guides public service and administration. We are interacting with the Department of Labor and Employment around those targets. So we are monitoring. And in fact, when you look at the work that is done even by Minister Ramokgopa, Marupeng Ramokgopa, because there are two Ramokgopas. Yes, Minister Ramokgopa was responsible for planning, monitoring. They have an indicator. So this indicator tells us that when we speak about vacancy opportunities within the public sector, we are meeting this target. So government, this is a responsible government led by President Ramaphosa. And we are responsible in a way that we are monitoring. The vacancy rate must also match the percentage of these opportunities for persons with disability. We'll also be paying attention, together with the Department of Labor and Employment, with paying attention on private sector. It's our obligation to employ and create opportunities. That does not leave anyone behind, including persons with disability.
Thank you so very much, Minister. Another thing, one more request that we have as the people that are living with physical limitations, is there anything that can be done regarding age restriction? Because this is challenging us so much. Many of people that are living with disabilities, many of them, they start school old already, and then maybe matriculated, so now 20-something years. And now you are left with very few years to 10, 35 years. And all of a sudden now you don't qualify to be employed anymore. So, basically, is there anything that can be done just for people that are living with disabilities, age from 35?
You know, let me tell you, there's what we call the missing middle. And that's a conversation government is having now. Because the intention of focusing on young people, and in particular, those who are of working age, up to the age of 35, right? This is youth category. But we are now saying that we should not lose 35 to 45-year-olds and so forth, the missing middle. And that's what we are doing. We are having that discussion to say that previously disadvantaged, it includes persons with disability. But you are correct. And we've seen it because the data and the evidence and the report that we've just engaged with about 2 weeks ago with Minister Chikunga and Minister Kwahube had to do with what is happening in the education sector, particularly for persons with disability, what is happening in the special schools, what is happening in the higher education sector, TVET and university, that we are actually losing the ability to transition the status of these schools and so forth, but also to translate this transition of schooling to employment. So we are paying attention on that. I can just guarantee you that we'll have steps and guidelines and standards, particularly for persons with disability.
Aye, that's nice to hear.
Live and direct from the Impact Studios in Randburg, we brought it to you live, and it was exciting. This was our first episode, and please do not forget to follow us on our social media platforms: TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. The handle is Disability 365 Podcast. And remember, leave us your comments. We want to hear from you, and if you want to get in touch with us, you can on 0738 748 035. That is 0738 748 035. Otherwise, catch us every Monday, because we'll be bringing you exciting information, exciting presenters, exciting guests. And do remember that we will be making sure that we see action beyond this table. Thank you very much. Till next time, out.